I got the man called Dave to help me host. That's an insight.
Edie, where you at, bitch? We got a show to do, girl. Don't be hiding on us.
Now we got to explain why we're in shirts and ties. We are actually doing a little New Heights wrestling business. We're filming some intros, and before we get into it, I want to have a moment with Dave. We love being a part of New Heights Wrestling, and sometimes we gotta fit in these recordings when we can, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a busy couple days for us. A busy day in particular today. We got a big interview coming at 2:00 as we record this with Wade Ting and Andrew Thompson of Post Wrestling, and we're doing a special 531, and we're trying to fit these recording intros in there for our lovely commentary position we have with New Heights Wrestling, and we're still bringing you a show. Joe just found out that AJ wasn't going to be out here before we came, and yeah, man, we're busy, but we're here. We love it. We got passion, and we bringing it to that ass every day. Let's go, baby.
And I also want to say, if you're in the Connecticut area, tomorrow night, Strange Brew Pub, Norwich, 8 p.m., Hip Hop for the Homeless. Guys, go down, get a shirt. Our logo's on the back of it, and you can help a worthy cause. Enemy the Illest is going to be in Norwich. Former guest of the show, Camouflage, is going to be in Norwich. Strife Bringing Chaos is going to be there. Swavsky is going to be performing. It is a huge night, and I can't wait for it, even though there is so much work ahead of us before then.
Yeah, and I don't think AJ Strange Brew will be there, though, just so you know.
Come on, he's not here. He's definitely not going to be there. Now, last week we talked about 1985, kind of went over the timeline, and I, from the Mothership Facebook group, got some really good fan responses. So I asked people what their favorite moments of 1985 were. Dan Titus says being 9 years old and staying up until 1 a.m. watching Hulk and Andre versus Stud and Bundy on Saturday night's main event. Jamie Hama responded with, Saturday night's main event was a huge deal. I was in second grade in 85, so asking to stay up late to see it was just as big an event as the show itself.
So true. Yeah, that was the same for me. Just getting to be up that late. Like when he said 1 o'clock too, it's funny. I think it started like around 11:30, but there were sometimes it would show a little later because they might have had like a sports event or something on, but sometimes it would just wrap up. They'd get started a little later. And I remember like, oh yeah, my parents being like, that wrestling, it's not starting yet, Dave. And I'm like, it's coming. It's coming. Like it was so important to me. I just didn't want to like miss it. You know, like we were going to get really big matches, and we did. And I stayed up late. I'm sure I didn't go to bed till like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes.
Yeah, now Saturday night's main event was, I believe, a summer replacement for weeks when Saturday Night Live wasn't on the air. So getting that late night time slot just made it that much bigger. Now, Chris Zauha from the Mothership Facebook group said the build up to Starrcade, Hulkamania, Piper, discovering the magazines, and the AWA in general. And it was in the mid 80s that the magazines really kind of started to take off more and got popular. You had Pro Wrestling Illustrated. What are some other magazines that were out there? I want to say The Wrestler was one, but I don't know. It wasn't one that I regularly read.
I'm trying to remember. I want to say Inside Wrestling. They had Pro Wrestling Illustrated had one time. I don't remember the name of it, but it was like dedicated to heels. It was like the bad guys magazines, and they had their bad guy writers, you know, and characters or whatever. And that stuck out to me. But there was also something like called The World of Wrestling or Wrestling. It was like done more like I think AJ talked about this a little bit last week too, where they had like real, actual like behind the scenes stories and not like the kayfabe ones we'd get with Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And this wasn't a magazine, but just one other thing I want to point this out too. Mike Mooneyham, a name I'm sure you're familiar with, Joe. You probably heard over the years, who was basically a guy who wrote about wrestling. I remember being a kid and finding his articles. This is going a little bit later, like late 80s, 90s, and seeing him write articles about wrestling and talking about real life things that were happening behind the scenes. And I was just blown away by that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like the 80s and 90s were almost the golden age of wrestling magazines where there were multiples out there. And you even had WWF, WCW kind of get into their own magazine game. Jamie Hammer's best moment of 1985 was a moment we discussed last week. Terry Funk beating up Mel Phillips. I sure hope he threw some potatoes. Dan Titus responded with, "I'd think that was a given with Funk."
Yeah.
That is both not surprising from him and also maybe he,
Yeah, Terry, I'm sure, laid it into Mel.
Now, Bill Shepard has a real personal memory, and it's not even anything specific. It was watching it with my great grandpa. I don't remember 85, but every Saturday and Sunday until he passed in his 90s, I watched wrestling with him. And that is something that, I mean, I never had that because my parents just weren't into wrestling. But a lot of people have that connection where whether it's a grandparent, aunt, or uncle that they would just sit with and watch wrestling, and that is, a special memory in itself.
I started watching it out by myself. Maybe there was a parent or my brother. Eventually it was just me and my brother, and he moved out. And then in the late 80s, 90s, it was me and my mom. Like I got her to watch it. She was home more around that time then, and that was it. We'd watch wrestling up until whenever I moved out. That's it. I was probably like 17 years, 18 years old watching wrestling with his mama.
Nice. Now, William Merriweather said Piper on MTV and cartoon specials, random wrestlers from other territories that came to New York for a cup of coffee. And that was one thing we did see in the 80s, like when Terry Funk came into WWF, when Ric Flair in the 90s, but a lot of these guys that were popular elsewhere would make appearances. Junkyard Dog, go down the list.
I will. The Fabulous Freebirds, who only showed up one time, but the first time I ever saw the Freebirds, ironically, was in WWF. Like they had a match. I was blown away by what I was seeing. These guys in these fancy robes, Michael Hayes with that long blonde hair, and then it just disappeared. And then I heard about they were in Texas and wrestling for a promotion called World Class, and then I would eventually see them again when I got legend at Mid South. Actually, Mid South UWF was when I would see them again the next time.
Yes, Ryan Damon's favorite moment of 85 was WrestleMania. Kind of hard to argue with there. Tariq Amin had this to say: my introduction to the AWA and international wrestling from Montreal. So he must be farther north. I would say, God, that Chicago, Minnesota area. And he said Hulkamania, Bundy's attack on Andre at the Maple Leaf Gardens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Bundy attacking Andre was a big deal. Just set up Bundy as eventually the following year he was going to be that guy to challenge Hulk Hogan. They were building him up as a monster in 85.
And that's when the WWF was really good at just building up these monsters to put up against Hogan. And that really is a golden age of wrestling if you look back on it. Steve Gennarelli had the debut of Saturday Night's Main Event, Terry Funk's WWF debut, and Piper Bruno feud begins.
Okay, I remember this partially. They had a match, I want to say, like in the Boston Garden at the time, too, that might have made it on one of the Coliseum videos or Primetime Wrestling. But that's interesting. I never would have thought of that as like, a long-term feud. Bruno would get involved once in a while. Like, I remember what people don't talk about when they did the Ricky Steamboat angle, which was, again, that would have been a few years down the road in WrestleMania 3, but where they did the angle where Savage dropped the bell on his throat and everything. Like Bruno was interviewing him in the back, and Bruno just kind of lost it in the middle of it. Like, you piece of garbage, you go Venice Great, and he started choking Randy, and they had to try to break him up. So that would happen from time to time. That's interesting. That was one of his memories, though.
Yeah. Now Michael Campbell has the whole saga of Flair, DiBiase, Murdoch from Mid South, and
Wow.
the Lawler Dundee tag team implosion from the 1019 TV show.
I'm jealous that he remembers that stuff. I did not get to see that stuff. So, but that sounds awesome.
I was talking to AJ before the show, and he says he remembers distinctly sitting in front of his TV and just being amazed at the Flair DB. I'm not going to get into it. He was more specific, but we'll leave that out. Now, Sean McKinney said he went and saw Flair versus Wahoo at the Bayfront Center in St. Pete. To be able to see wrestling in the 80s, and especially like got a Flair match, just an NWA style match in Florida, I'm guessing that has to be wild.
I know. I always wanted to go, especially when because I lived in south part of Jersey for a little while, and I remember they would advertise those cards for like the Meadowlands, and I was like, oh, that's we live. My parents like driving, because New Jersey was like a bigger state, so it was a couple hours long to get through. But I remember like I'd hear those matches, like Ric Flair was going to wrestle Sergeant Slaughter, or Ric Flair was going to wrestle Ricky Steamboat, And it was like these were just matches. Like I went, and they actually had it like in the newspaper again too. I remember reading about the results were in the paper. I was like, oh man, what a time! Like I had no idea how special this was.
Yes. Now the last comment I have here, it's from the Mothership Facebook group, but it's from John McAdam, who has his own podcast, Stick to Wrestling, and listen to these memories. There is a list of them here. Gino and Hernandez and Chris Adams destroying the car. Kevin Von Erich had just won.
Wow.
David Crockett screaming she likes it as Magnum TA forces a kiss upon Baby Doll.
Oh, yeah.
Andre the Giant roughing up Vince McMahon on TNT. Gino Hernandez tying David Manning up in the ropes and cutting his hair. Baby Doll becoming Dusty Rhodes' valet for 30 days, but she escapes by riding off on Nelson Royal's horse. Magnum TA finally getting caught by himself and taking a dressing room beating after multiple warnings from Arn Anderson. The best dressed man in Mid-South storyline. And Bill Dundee rolling pennies to the Memphis studio crowd as a Christmas gesture. Now, just to have one of those memories would be amazing, but to remember so many things so vividly, that has to be a time. Like, think some people's vivid memories are going to be Seth Rollins' laugh.
Yeah, no. I can't remember it was 84, 85, but when he talked about David Crockett, she likes it. She likes it. I was thinking about Andre the Giant when they were cutting his hair. It was Ken Patera and Big John Studd. And I remember my dad being disgusted because they kept saying, they're raping this man. They're raping this man of his dignity. And Vince he would have pauses. They're raping this man of his dignity. And I just remember I go back and I was like, I didn't know as a kid. but I remember I didn't know what that was. But I remember my dad going, this fucking asshole, this bullshit. Like walking away. I'm like, what's his problem? They're cutting Andre's hair, you asshole.
Now, we're going to get to some Pro Wrestling Illustrated rankings from 1985. And can you guess who the top wrestler in 85 would have been?
Oh, well, I don't have it in front of me. So, sorry, HA. I did do my homework. The top wrestler in 85. I bet you it's going to be Flair if it's the magazines. Because I would think it'd be Hogan, but it'd be Flair, yeah.
It 100% is Flair. Hogan is number 4.
Wow. So, whoever the AWA champ is at that time, I don't know if it's Stan Hansen or Martel yet. I'm guessing they're number 2 or 3.
Martel is number 2.
Okay. Who the fuck? Okay, so Flair, Martel. What promotion would have got the next one? Jerry Lawler?
Lawler doesn't even make the list.
Okay. What promotion? What title?
You're going to want to think Southern United States.
I'm thinking Florida. Okay, Southwest. Okay. Interesting. God,
if AJ were in this discussion, he wouldn't even have a leg to stand on right now.
Wait, what promotion is this?
It's Kerry Von Erich. He's number 3.
Is it? What title was this? Wasn't World Class yet, right? Because They have to break off. They're part of the NWA, unless they're counting that Texas world title or whatever it is. I guess the North American or.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. But to round out the top 10, I'm going to give you 5 through 9, and then we'll see if you can guess 10.
Okay.
So number 5 is Dusty Rhodes. 6
Sure.
is Jimmy Garvin. 7 is Sergeant Slaughter. 8, Wahoo McDaniel. 9, Greg Valentine.
Wow.
And who do you think made the 10th?
Andre? Roddy Piper?
Ronnie Garvin.
Wow. Not against that either.
Yeah, it's such a weird mix. Now, let's go to tag teams because
okay,
you would think this would be easier, but there's quite a variety of teams on here.
All right, one of the first teams coming to my mind would be the Rock and Roll Express.
Rock and Roll Express. Let's see where they are on this list. They are number 5.
Okay. So the Road Warriors.
Road Warriors are number 1.
Okay. The British Bulldogs.
The British Bulldogs are not on this list.
Wow. Oh, wait. This is during the time of they're coming a little bit later. So this would have been Wyndham and Rotundo are probably on this list.
Wyndham and Rotundo, they are number 3.
So Sheik and Volkov?
Sheik and Volkov. It actually, I do not see them on here.
Okay.
I was about to give you number 7, which is Ivan Koloff and Nikita Koloff.
Interesting. So we got the Road Warriors. We got those. So the Midnight Express have to be on this list.
The Midnight Express are number 6.
Interesting. Who's number 2? I don't think we said number 2.
No, we haven't. And you might get this one if you were pressed, but it is Dusty Rhodes and Manny Fernandez.
Wow. Fascinating.
Number 4 is the Fabulous Ones of Stan Lane and Steve Kern.
Are the Fantastics on this list?
Oh, yeah. That actually is the Fantastics. You got, or no, or you're asking about the Fantastics.
Oh, yeah, because the Fabulous Ones are a different team. So.
Oh, the Fabulous Ones isn't Stan Lane and Steve Kern? That's
Stan Lane and Steve Kern, but then there's the Fantastics, Bobby Fulton, or maybe it's Jackie Fulton, and Tommy Rogers.
Oh, yes. They're not on this list. You would think they are because you got Black Bart and Ron Bass is number 8. Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell are number 9. And number 10 is Coco Ware and Norvell Austin.
The Pretty Young Things.
It's funny when you go back in time sometimes how, years can almost mix together, or you forget who was in a certain time. Now, who would you say is the most popular wrestler? Because they have this different than the top 10.
Well, in this era, it's probably Hulk Hogan.
He's number 2.
Dusty Rhodes?
He's number 3.
What? Oh, okay. This time period, I'm going to guess what they have listed, and they might be right. Magnum TA.
Magnum TA is 6th.
What the fuck? Andre?
Andre not even on the list.
Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
He is actually number 8. It's actually Kerry Von Erich. And I think I want to say that this is sympathy still from David, but Kevin Von Erich is number 7. So I don't know how one would get that much more sympathy than another.
I don't know. I mean, the problem is this is during the regional times too. And these magazines, they would do their own thing. So Kerry was extremely popular, like all the Von Erichs in Texas and in Israel, where World Class was shown, and I'm sure in elsewhere too. But I don't think you could put the popularity they had on a national level when you're comparing it to guys like Dusty and Hogan, even Magnum. But that would be my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I was surprised to see those rankings. Now, if you had to guess most hated, Yeah, you're not even gonna get number one. So who would you guess is number two on the list?
I would have guessed Rowdy Piper would be on this list somewhere.
Hmm. You would be wrong.
Ric Flair has to be on this list somewhere then. All right.
We might have to throw out this list. PG
All right.
Walker is number one.
Who?
Chris. That's why I said you're not gonna get number one. Number two is Chris Adams.
Okay. Yeah, he was hated in
Three
Texas.
is Wahoo. Yeah. He was Wahoo McDaniel. Four was Big John Studd.
Okay.
And I'm gonna leave this list alone. That just has no credibility to me. Let's do one that would be easy. Top 10 WWF 1985. Who do you got?
Number one's Hogan.
Number
He's
one is
champ.
definitely Hogan.
Okay. 85. Okay. Somewhere on this list is Junkyard Dog.
Junkyard Dog is number 7.
Okay. Andre. I don't know if he's suspended yet, but I'm thinking Andre's on this list.
He's not on this list.
Okay. So he's suspended. So Jimmy Snuka. Would he have been around this time?
Jimmy Snuka is number 6.
Number 6. Okay. Oh, Tito Santana.
Tito Santana, number 3.
Number 3. Oh, this. All right. This is not popularity. This is his top wrestlers, right?
Yeah, this might be like where they are ranked in relation to the title. Because it has Hogan listed as champion, and then it's got 1 through 10 below it.
Greg Valentine.
Greg Valentine, number 1.
Yeah, he's Intercontinental champ. Tito Santana was 3. Okay, so we had Just Your Dog. Iron Sheik.
Iron Sheik, not on the list.
Nikolai Volkov.
Not on the list, surprisingly.
King Kong Bundy had to be on this list.
Not on the list.
Nice. Big John Studd. I guess he's on here.
He's number 5.
Ken Patera. Was he busy?
He's number 4.
Okay, so he hadn't destroyed McDonald's yet with a boulder. All
right. So now you got number 2, 8, 9, and 10 left.
Roddy Piper
is number 2.
Mr. Wonderful Paul Horndorf
is number 8.
All right, what is left?
9 and 10.
9 and 10. All right, getting in this time period here. I don't know. Do we have Ricky Steamboat in WWF yet?
Nope.
No, so he's not.
I'll just give them to you. So 9 is Bob Orton Jr., 10 is Jesse Ventura.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't have got Jesse. Okay.
And I'm looking through some other lists here. The one list that threw me off was that most popular list, because that just didn't seem to necessarily line up with like what you'd think. And that was another thing with magazines, especially around this time, is they were able to, kind of fudge their own facts a little bit and create the narrative they wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. These are kayfabe magazines. They kind of did their own thing, and I'm pretty sure they just made up interviews sometimes. This was all storyline, a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, and speaking of kayfabe magazines, we have it listed this week, but we're going to save it for next week when AJ Strange Brew is actually here, because I've been sitting on the women's 150 for a little bit, and AJ is such a fan of ladies wrestling. I wanted to get into it with him a little bit. So we will save that for next week. We also have the tag team issue of PWI is very close to coming out. And there is a lot of stuff going on in wrestling right now that we want to talk about. Randy in the comments here, and this is kind of another thing we were going to get to. Dave, AJ, and Chevy will be at Bellator tonight taking in the fights. And stay tuned to our YouTube. We'll have plenty of shorts up from it. We'll have shots from the event. And snuck a couple of events in on us this week. We've got Final Battle, which really felt like it crept up on us. And Wednesday night, they did a lot to like fill out this card.
I
Now,
was
what do you
I was not like really looking forward. I'll be honest with you. There's some fine stuff on this, but I was kind of like, okay, there's a lot going on this weekend. I might skip this one. No big deal. It just wasn't like, Shane Taylor coming back, pretty cool, but not like blowing me away. I've seen Yuta and Garcia. It'll be a good match. Claudio and Jericho will be a good match. But again, I didn't feel compelled because I just feel like there hasn't been this really big push of Claudio lately. I just haven't anything he's done. But when they announced that we were getting FTR and the Briscoes in a double dog collar match, I was like, you assholes. Now you're making me have to go see this because I want to see that. They've had the best matches. NXT Deadline, Randy brought up in the comments too this weekend. I'll be honest with you. I'm curious about NXT Deadline, but this whole thing is kind of reminding me of they used to have that King of the Mountain thing in TNA where they had to go to the penalty box. And then also WWE had those scramble matches where people were getting the pens. It's kind of like it's just a lot going on here. I don't know, like it doesn't give me a good vibe. Like it makes me think this is going to be like kind of like a little too crazy. But because it is so crazy, I am curious. Like I do want to know how this plays out. But yeah, we'll see. I am more interested in Ring of Honor Final Battle, mainly because they added that Briscoes FTR dog collar match. That's got me hooked.
Yeah, that's been like the issue with AEW, it seemed, is that ROH has been kind of something they fit in from time to time. And, I would say most people's anticipation for this event wasn't huge until they announced this dog collar match. And a interesting thing you brought up with NXT, what was the last new match creation that actually worked? Because King of the Mountain is like the most maligned. Would it be like Hell in a Cell?
Hold on. Hell is first off, this comment.
We'll get to that question after this.
Yeah, that caught me.
What do you think? What do you think would be the last really good new match creation?
Money in the Bank is something I still like to this day. I like the concept. It's not always executed well, but I still like the concept. I still get excited for Money in the Bank. Hell in a Cell is a good one. The Elimination Chamber, actually, I still think has some credibility. That did come after Hell in a Cell, I believe. So that that might be it. I do like the win pods. But if honestly, the truly last best like new match to get, and we are picking WWE matches here, by the way, so we'll give them credit for this. But this goes to Pat Patterson to me, the Royal Rumble, all right, which obviously came out in the 80s, but like as far as like late 80s, but like I think that's my favorite style matchup. I think it's because they do it once a year, really, with very few exceptions. There are exceptions, but once a year, but like that style of matchup where it's built like a Super Bowl almost. I enjoy that.
And I think where you really run into issues is when your match has a lot of rules that go into it. That makes it confusing because then you're less enjoying the match and just trying to keep up with the rules. Does this fall within it? Like, does this work for us? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's get to Randy's comment here because maybe Rampage should be 2 hours. And I really like the 1 hour format. I just feel like they've shot themselves in the foot with where it falls necessarily time-wise during the week. Like 10 p.m. on a Friday isn't ideal. And even though you may have already been watching SmackDown, that's another hour of what's become like B-show matches since then. So if they were going to go to 2 hours, they would definitely have to work on the format, do something different to spice it up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they need to get it doesn't feel must watch to me right now. But neither does Monday Night Raw anymore. Like Triple H kind of had it going for a little while, but now I feel like it's kind of dragged again. Really, my two favorite shows have been SmackDown and AEW Dynamite. I feel like they're consistent. And what do those have in common? They're two main shows that have quality matches and they're 2 hours. So Raw's too long, and in the situation with Rampage, it's not too long, but it's just there's nothing there that I think you hit it. I think part of it's the time slot, but also they haven't got me anything where I feel compelled I have to watch. Like they had CM Punk come back on Rampage at one point. We're a long way from that.
Yeah, tonight has maybe the most interesting Rampage with Moxley taking on Takeshita. And, going into Final Battle could also be interesting, but you're right. There's not a ton on there that is like must watch.
I
So,
want to actually just change the subject here a little bit because I wanted to get this in before we left today. You had talked about there was a tag team issue coming up with Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and just on the cover, we talked about this in a friend group that we're in, and it got a little bit of feedback, which I like. But the cover, basically, number one, they're showing the Usos on the cover, so that's going to happen. We'll talk about that in a few weeks. But these tweets that they put on the cover, like Dax Harwood, did Paul Heyman write this issue? Because it's full of lies. The Briscoes, imagine if we weren't banned from TV. Usos my ass. And then the Usos. Oh,
yeah, that was like a meme that got out, right? Where it had the cover shown and then they put these comments on it.
Yes. And then the Usos, a lot of salty ass tag teams there, huh? We the ones. Now, I thought this was great that these teams were all playing off of this and arguing. I thought it was great for the magazine. And I was saying in our group of friends that I really wish all these three teams were under one roof because I think these might be the three best teams out there right now. For me personally, it's FTR. I know Jake, a friend of ours, agreed with that, and Jake St. John, friend of the show, author. And I know Mike Flynn said no, he thinks it's the Usos. And they both had these legitimate reasons why and what they love. And I think it's great. Like, I love this kind of discussion. I'm excited about, some of these teams that are in wrestling now. And I'm glad this is one thing definitely with Vince gone. I think that there's this chance for tag team wrestling to be big in WWE again. I think AEW has always put an emphasis on tag team wrestling. And I'm hoping that maybe the Briscoes will have a platform that they can be on soon enough because they should be.
Yeah, that's one thing that I believe Tony Khan said he's going to be addressing the ROH situation Saturday night. So what is your guess as to where ROH lands?
That's just so hard. Part of me thinks it'd be part of like Fight TV or something like that. I'd love it to be a part of HBO Max or something like that. Something a little different, part of some premium package. I'll just throw it out there. I'll say HBO Max, but I have no idea. I'm thinking it's going to be part of like something to do with TBS and TNT and F, but HBO is part of that. So we'll say HBO Max.
Yeah, I was going to say most likely not Fight because since Tony Khan has purchased Ring of Honor, their events have come off Fight and they've been mostly on the Bleacher Report. HBO Max would be an awesome place for it to land. I would like for it to go there. I'm hoping, my guess, I'm going to say it's going to take the Rampage slot. Mm-hmm. And Rampage is going to become something else.
Okay.
Interesting point that MLW is on Pro Wrestling TV. And I think Pro Wrestling TV works great for MLW.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's where Ring of Honor would necessarily land because they almost feel like too big a thing, even though they're not treated like to land there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would think that that because it's Tony Khan back at them, because they're associated with AEW Town and AEW is on national TV, and you got guys like Jericho and Danielson, I would expect Ring of Honor to have a bigger platform than Pro Wrestling TV. I love that there is a Pro Wrestling TV. I'm glad that MLW's on there, but I wouldn't expect Ring of Honor to be there. That would be quite a coup for Pro Wrestling TV, I think, if they actually got that. That'd be good for them. But my guess is Tony Khan's going to want it on something. I could have saw this going on DAZN, but Impact Wrestling just announced that they're going to be on DAZN. So that kind of makes me lean into something else. And I'm going to go with HBO Max because I really don't know. I know they're part of the Turner family. So I'm really just having a hard time seeing where else they could land. I think you get them on a streaming service like that. And other than your idea, maybe, like you said, maybe it's going to be Ring of Honor Rampage, and maybe we're going to have, exclusively Ring of Honor on Turner. That would be another way to do it. And honestly, with the ratings currently that Rampage has, and this isn't an insult, you're not really losing anything. So you could do something different. They're probably still going to get the same ratings, and you might even be able to build it.
Definitely. Now, like Dave said, we have a big interview today at 2:00. We're very excited to be bringing you Wei Ting and Andrew Thompson from Post Wrestling. And we've actually got some big interviews lined up for this coming week. We have Alex Red, the owner of Atomic Revolutionary Wrestling, ARW out of Florida. If you don't follow either Alex or ARW, definitely check them out because it's just a big company that I've had my eye on for a while. And I see the hustle that Alex not only puts into his regular job, but also to ARW. So it's going to be great to talk to him. We've got independent star Alec Price. We're going to be talking
What up, G?
this coming week. And we are very happy about that. We have Dustin Waller's tag team partner of Kylon King that I have to nail a time down for, but we're bringing you a lot of interviews for the end of the year that we're very excited about. And
if Joe doesn't want me to see my family, it's good.
And if you're watching this, please tune in to Wei and Andrew because we're going to be doing a live 531 on top wrestling moments of the year. And we're going to answer Randy's question before we go out. Do you think Sasha Banks is going to AEW? That's a definite no.
I don't think
there's talks of her popping up at Wrestle Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the new management team that's in at WWE, she'd be much more comfortable going back there and maybe being able to do these other ventures that she was looking for.
Yeah. Randy, I did get your list. Yes, and it'll be red. Don't worry. Tune in at 2:00 if you want to hear. Yeah, Sasha Banks, I would agree with Joe. I don't think she ends up in AEW, although it is interesting. I will say this, that Saraya has a mystery tag team partner that they felt to need to announce isn't going to be on a show until the LA Forum, which is like 3 weeks, maybe a month away. So that would lead me to think there maybe is a possibility there's a big match, a big partner. But
who do you think her partner is going to be?
That's the thing, right? Like, I don't think it's Sasha Banks because I think Sasha Banks is going to get the money from WWE, but I think maybe she wants to do something in Japan because she's talked about that. So who are our options left then that's out there that's a free agent? God, did you come up with anybody?
I've got one, and I'm like 1,000% this is going to be the pick.
Okay, tell me what it is.
Saraya's mom.
Oh, wow.
She still wrestles.
Okay.
She was featured when Saraya was in Shine. She, I believe, did like shots there. And getting it would just be a good story. And you're not bringing in her mom to like be a part of the roster. Right. It's like a one-time team up. And it's a good way, I think, to get some attention on the Forum show.
Yeah, I like it. I don't know if that's what they're doing, but I like it. That's good. We'll see.
We're taking 3-point shots to end the show today. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you again at 2.